Welcome into a college football playoff semifinal edition of Pete's Pigskin Preview, presented by RiverLand Roofing. I'm Neal McCready, joined by MPW Digital football expert Pete DeWeese. It's the first time we've taped this deep into January since we've been doing this show for a few years. So appreciate everyone. You guys at RiverLand, you're getting a potentially free month here
Absolutely.
on the big show. So thanks to them. It's going to sound a little different probably for you guys. Hopefully, I don't think it'll look much different, but it will sound a little different. I am in downtown Oklahoma City right now. I covered the Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss beat Georgia. I keep wanting to say 37-34, but it was 39-34. That was technically a safety there at the end. 39-34. Ole Miss wins the Sugar Bowl. I got up at 6 a.m. on Friday. I drove from New Orleans to Norman, Oklahoma. I covered Ole Miss, Oklahoma basketball Saturday there at Lloyd Noble Center on the OU campus. I had always intended to do that, and then I was going to drive home today. It made no sense, Pete, to drive home today because I would get back to Oxford and then turn around tomorrow basically and have to drive to Memphis and then connect somewhere to get to Phoenix, as opposed to just staying in Oklahoma City and catching a direct flight Tuesday morning from OKC to Phoenix. It'll suck on Friday when I have to land in Oklahoma City and drive home, but from a logistical standpoint, this just made more sense.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit more practical. I don't know if practical is the right word because all of it's kind of crazy and haywire, but I think I saw you say it elsewhere. Is to put out a top flight product, you have to cover it a certain way,
Yep.
and you guys are doing what you think is the best way to cover it. And I think that anybody that's a patron of of the website, but also that listens to all the podcast and the different things that you guys do, I think so many of us appreciate it.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. A lot of people really appreciate what you've done as well, because your coverage this year of getting people ready for games. The Georgia game played out in the first half exactly like you said it would.
I said,
Their screen game. I mean, I've had people get mad at me in the last few days because I brag on Georgia, and I don't think they understand that I'm really complimenting Ole Miss. Georgia's legit.
they are.
Georgia's. Someone said something the other day, and I just ignored it. But it was along the lines of Georgia's overrated, and I was like, I don't know how you come to that conclusion. I literally don't know how you reach that conclusion. They are so impressive in person physically, and their screen game, which everyone knows is coming, is still just dynamic, man.
They're so efficient. And I mean, listen, the play that Branch made where he literally ducked under a guy, and then that was the first bit was luck. And the rest of it was talent. And the kid he's electric, he's dynamic, whatever adjective you want to use. He certainly has ability in the open field. But they're just. At one point, I put it on Twitter or X, whatever it is. I said it during the game. I was just like, they are, it's coming. It's predictable by personnel, by situation, but they're just so efficient at it. And it's just part of that is, in my opinion, is kind of a kudos. And Georgia fans don't love hearing this right now, and it's just kind of, they've always been weird about it. But since I've been living here, but kudos to Mike Bobo for having faith in calling it, right? And getting the ball into the hands of his best players and getting it in space and out of the teeth of the defense. And even when tendencies exist, you can be stubborn. Coaches do it. It happens. But it's not stubborn when it's still effective. And they've gone to it time and time again in crucial situations when seemingly everybody that has spent any time preparing for them should know it's coming, and yet they still find success. So, make no bones about it. I mean, Georgia is a good football team, and Ole Miss obviously walked out of there with a victory.
Yeah, I I've kind of come to the place now. Ole Miss and Georgia have played 3 times here in the last year and 2 months or whatnot. Um, really, all 3 games have been classics. Ole Miss is now 2-1. The game in Athens earlier this year was basically a draw for about 51 minutes, and then Georgia dominated the last 9 minutes. The game in Oxford last November was a game that Ole Miss kind of dominated, really, but they didn't put it away until late. And then
Right.
this was the Donnybrook, man. I mean, it was. I thought you saw so much about both programs, and I do this because I think you can finally legitimately talk about Ole Miss now in the same breath with Georgia.
Hmm.
I think it's official now, and the reason I say that is because, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. I thought the game was so fascinating because Georgia had Ole Miss on the ropes, and Ole Miss came back. And then Ole Miss had Georgia on the ropes. And Georgia did what Georgia does. They just kept playing and tied it up. And then Ole Miss made the play. And and it was going to come down to someone was going to make a play at that point. And I was so thankful the game wasn't decided by an official's call. I was so thankful the game didn't go to overtime because I despise college football's overtime rules. And I really do. And the mood was. I said before the game, someone said, "What do you want to happen?" I said, "Well, I want it to not be determined by an official, and I don't want overtime." And they said, "Oh, because of the hour." And I'm like, "No, no, I'm going to be up late no matter what." It's
Just
not
hate
that.
it.
It's I hate it. And
Right.
had that game been decided by 2-point plays, it would have been an absolute miscarriage.
Yep.
And they've got to fix it, but it didn't. It was great. It came down to Ole Miss made a play, Georgia made a mistake. Ole Miss made them pay for that mistake, and then Lucas Carnero makes the 47-yard field goal, and he'll never have to buy a drink in Oxford the rest of his life.
He
And
shouldn't, that's for sure.
and it was great. It was just a fantastic football game, and I think it's 2 elite programs now. Georgia's an elite program, and I think Ole Miss has become an elite program. And the fact that it happened with Lane Kiffin not on the sidelines, I thought was more than symbolic, frankly.
Well, I mean, obviously you know this and the listeners don't, but we talked on the phone a little bit day after the game, right? And I told you one of the things to me that was most impressive, and in a lot of ways it's really symbolic, I think, of the team this season. That things happen, good things happen, bad things happen. They just don't blink. They just kind of they spot the ball, right? They just keep playing football, and they found a way to win every game but one. And some of those they've had to really pull it out to find a way to win it. But one of the most impressive things to me was in that game, there was never a point where they showed an image of the sideline where a first-time head coach in his second game as a decision maker in an absolutely massive game for a program looked flustered or lost or panicked. And that as a coach, that was the thing when Georgia suddenly gets a little bit of momentum, right? And the fumble happens and you look at that sideline and there's nobody over there gritting teeth. It's just they show Golden walking towards Lacey, like clapping, like it's all right, we're good. There was no panic, and I think that when you listen to what he says about this team and the things that Joe Judge has said about this team since he's kind of been given a microphone, and Brian Brown, but also you listen to the way that some of the kids talk about the program. That's very much kind of the identity. And Charlie Weiss talked about it last week leading up is it's not a team of demonstrative personalities that have to bark, right? It's just a bunch of guys that show up every day, seem to enjoy what they're doing. And I think whether it's Pete Golding understanding that is his roster and acting in that fashion, or whether that's just who he thinks who he truly is, right? I don't know because he's not somebody that I know well. But I think to go from a position as a coordinator into that chair in that big of a stage and to never panic, I was very impressed with that, and I think that's something that who knows what the future holds for Ole Miss, not just Thursday night against Miami, but in the long term. But I do think from that standpoint, from a decision making standpoint, and just the way that he carried himself, and the growth we've seen from press conference one to now, and the what we've seen, from a demeanor standpoint and a decision making standpoint on the sideline, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism in Oxford.
I do too. I don't say this to rip on Lane Kiffin because I want to be clear. I don't have a personal issue with Lane. A lot of people do. I don't. Um, he's a hell of a football coach.
He is.
He's
He's
a hell of a
elite.
football coach.
Yes.
He won 50 games in 5 seasons at Ole Miss, inheriting a program that was he was in neutral at best, man. When they got it, and then the COVID year, and he put together a really good staff, improved the staff, got Pete Golding on the staff. The numbers since Pete Golding joined Ole Miss have jumped.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give Lane credit for hiring him. You just do. There's a lot of history that's being revised right now about how it ended with Lane. There's also some people that are revising some history over the last 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I think both history revisionists are wrong. He left in a way that is going to be difficult to overcome, and he built the program that was over the course of his tenure at Ole Miss was the third best program in the SEC, and I think he left it as the second best program in the SEC that is right there toe to toe with the proverbial big dog. And look, we're going to transition here in a minute. I'm going to tell you about RiverLand in a second. Then we're going to get into Miami. Here's the reality, and I think it gets lost. And for whatever reason, I think it's because of the portal and because of the Kiffin stuff and the assistant coaches and Charlie Weiss taking the Baton Rouge to Oxford shuttle. This football team is one win away from playing for the national championship. They have to win one football game. Either Ole Miss or Miami is going to play for the national championship. That's fact.
Mm-hmm.
And to be there is remarkable. I mean, if I had told somebody on Thanksgiving night in 2019 that in the next 6 years later, Ole Miss would play in a national semifinal game, you would have accused me of a tremendous amount of substance abuse, and or you would have said your mental illness finally got the best out of you.
Some real homerism and delusion.
I mean, I don't even think it would be homerism. I just think someone would have said, "You're freaking nuts." And here they are, and there's a lot of credit to be dispersed, but it's funny. I'm sitting in downtown Oklahoma City. I'm literally, if I have the drapes pulled so that there's no glare, but if I didn't have the drapes pulled, right there is where the Thunder are building their brand new arena. And down the street is where they won the NBA title back in June. And the one thing that I remember struck me in June when Carson and I came for the NBA finals, we came for game 2, is you can assume naively that, hey, we'll get back. We'll get back. Look at all the talent on Georgia's team. They're not back.
Mm-hmm. Look, Ohio State.
I mean,
who had the best defense in the country all year long.
Yeah, and they're not back. You might get back next year. You might not get back for a long time. You could actually be a better team sometime in the next 2 or 3 years and not get back. Look at the Indiana Pacers, right? I mean, they were there. They were one game away from winning a title, and this year they're probably not making the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Injuries, free agency, and that stuff. Actually, free agency is a part of college football now.
It absolutely is.
So the point of it, and I think Pete Golding gets it. I think it's why yesterday with Heather Dinich, she got a little testy finally with, "Hey, y'all keep talking about this. That's fine. It's not what we're talking about."
Right?
This is a monumental opportunity, an opportunity you hate to say of a lifetime, but potentially the opportunity of a lifetime. It's very difficult to win championships. It's very
No,
difficult to get to that place where you can win a championship.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, listen, Ole Miss wins that game late into the night on January 1st, and the next morning there's free agents en route to Oxford for a visit, and
Yeah.
there's no time to breathe for the coaching staff. And even for the players, like the turnaround is so fast from that game till this next game. And so even that opportunity to kind of enjoy, and I think there's a balance of having them understand it's just another game, but it's also a game you've earned,
Yeah.
and it's an opportunity that you need to relish and kind of bask in because you may never have another opportunity. And there's certainly a fine line of that. And I read the same quotes yesterday and kind of got the same vibe of like, I think Pete Golding he's tired of hearing about that. Like the focus needs to be on what this team has accomplished. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. He's irritated. And I get why the initial questions were asked. She might have gone one follow-up too
Yeah.
many. But look, she's a national reporter, and this is
It,
breaking news kind of stuff,
listen, the whole country is trying to figure out how to navigate it because it's a situation that's so unique and so different. And I think they want to make it like everybody wants to know what are the conversations being had, what are the text messages actually like. Peter, you talking to Lane? Like people want those answers. And the reality is he's so focused on work, right? He's in that press conference because he's Allen Iverson. He doesn't want to get fined.
Right.
CFP says he's got to be in there.
Yeah.
That's not what he wants to be doing. He wants to be talking to the DB that's going to shore up the secondary or the running back that's going to, add depth. And so there's all these different things going on, and it's not where he wants to be. But I think when he's having those conversations, he wants the focus to be on the kids and on the opportunity.
It's funny, and we'll transition after this. Yesterday, the way the media works at OU after a basketball game is the road visiting coach goes in first. And so Chris Beard and Patton Pinkins came into the room, and I got what I needed. And then OU brings players in, and then when the players leave, they bring Porter Moser, the basketball coach, in. So when I went into the media workroom, Porter Moser and Joe Castiglione Jr. were sitting there kind of waiting for his turn to go in. And they know who I am, and we just started talking. And of course, I mean, Porter Moser just won an SEC basketball game. They're hard to win. And he's like, "What's going on over there? Like what's the deal?" And he made the great point. He's like, for as messed up as college basketball is, he's like, at least our calendar makes a little sense.
No, it makes so completely different.
He's like, can you imagine? He was like, can you imagine it's late February and you're making your push for the tournament and kids are getting in the portal and you're bringing kids in on visits and from other programs that are in the tournament or what? He's like, that's insanity. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, the Oregon coaching staff, you've got Klein. Is it Klein?
Klein, yeah.
He's the head coach at Kentucky.
And tossing out $5 million for a transfer quarterback like today.
It might have been, hey, I don't have time for anything else. Just
he doesn't even have a house in Lexington yet. He doesn't know what the market looks like because he's still in Oregon most of the time. But he's jet setting 3 time zones to lock down a transfer quarterback. I mean, yeah, it's
defensive coordinators doing the same thing at Cal.
Yep.
And then they're trying to put a game plan together to beat Indiana. Indiana's trying to replace Mendoza right now with a quarterback, and
I thought the back and forth between Signetti and Lanning was fantastic. It was so good because like they all have to just look like I'd love to hear Mario talk to Pete before the game on Thursday because they're both just like have to be like, what the hell, man? That's just it's such a real thing right now.
Well, I mean, here's the thing is, imagine this at the high school level. You work so hard to get to this place. And A, you can't focus on it. And B, you can't fully enjoy the ride because you're having to do all this other stuff that I wrote this in 10 thoughts. We're taping this on Sunday afternoon. To me, there is such an obvious fix. It's just right there. It's so commonsensical that I'll know it'll never happen. It's push the signing day to February, push the portal to April or May, eliminate spring football, and allow a summer full of OTAs and mini camps.
You truly go to a pro model.
Just go. Look, if Kentucky's going to pay a quarterback $5 million and we're going to openly admit it, we are a pro model at that point.
Well, listen, even Pete Golding, right, has openly said, I think multiple times now in press conference, he refers to players talking about their contracts, right? Because that's what it is. You were signing one-year contracts every year in college football now. It's, listen, let me say this. With the calendar screwed up, there's nothing we can do about it right now. To manage what Ole Miss is managing right now and to do it successfully with Charlie Weiss on the midnight flights and everything else going on with Pete Golding and multiple guys coming in and apparently signing contracts or agreeing to terms in the past 2 days and also preparing to play in this Final Four game. This is where you do have to go back and give a little bit of credit to Lane Kiffin. And I honestly think you have to go back and give it to Nick Saban. And I honestly think you also have to give a lot to Keith Carter. The infrastructure around college football is so much bigger than what people understand.
Yeah.
And it has changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years. And with NIL, the need for support staff has absolutely changed. And listen, there's a reason the NCAA finally came back and said, you know what, we're not going to cap the number of guys you can actually have on the field coaching. We're just going to cap how many you can send on the road. There's a reason they did that. Like there's no way in this current model that anybody could survive in the structure of athletic department that Ole Miss was when I was there, and I've been gone for 20 years now. But even going back, and I'd love to talk to Tyler Siskey about it because I have an idea of what that looked like under Matt and a little bit under Hugh and with Tyler and those guys, but it's grown since then,
Houston Nutt couldn't get a nutritionist.
Couldn't get right, and probably blamed you for it. But but Lane and now Pete Golding learning from the way Nick Saban built his program, right? And it's not unique to Ole Miss. Everybody big is doing it now.
Sure.
Period.
Sure.
But the way that they've built the office and the willingness of Keith Carter and the Ole Miss administration to get ahead of it, because this isn't something where I felt like Ole Miss came in and it's when Lane was probably bullheaded about it when he first got there, and they agreed to it. They rolled it out for him.
Yeah.
And so, now like we talk about GMs with these programs and everybody's got one. That was not the case. When Ole Miss went to make that move, it was not common in college football. And the number of guys, the analysts that they have and the different roles that all the people carry, that's the only way this ship floats.
And he had to fight for it. You make a great point. And I know we're probably talking longer than people want us to on this. I don't think they care. People are so excited right now they actually want to hear some of this. When he got there, I think one of the things Lane pushed back against when people said was, hey, man, Ole Miss is giving you everything. His pushback on that, I'm probably somewhat violating a confidence here, but I actually feel like I'm sort of taking up for Lane, so he probably will forgive me for this part. His pushback on that was nuanced. It was, but not when I first got there.
Right.
I had to work really hard to get the things that I needed to get. I had to argue and fight and lobby and bitch and complain. And I get it now, but and so when people go, well, he had it, you're right, but he's right too. And to your point, the fact that the program can survive this amount of turbulence and still the plane can just keep going is a testament to what he built, to what Keith Carter fought to get built, to what the Grove Collective fought to get built, to Glenn Boyce supporting it the way that he did. I mean, there's a lot of credit, but yeah, you absolutely have to give a lot of credit to Lane. Hey, look, when they brought Pete Golding in, he'd been at Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and he walked in and said, "Hey, we got to have this, and this to be able to do what you're talking about doing. You can talk the talk about we want to compete at a national level, but you have to walk the walk, or else the talk is just meaningless, right?" And so that was some of Lane's frustration early, and then yeah, he got it late, and he blew it in 2024, and he knew he blew it in 2024, and he was mad at himself, and there was a lot of stuff, and a lot of the stuff you hear, a lot of truth to it. Some of it's a little exaggerated, but yeah, they blew it in 2024 because he had the team to do it, and he didn't. And then they carried right into 2025, and here we are. And it's really kind of fascinating to look at. And Pete Golding said that on Saturday when he kept getting asked about this. And I think some of the national people, because you have to remember this. I'm doing a quick little journalism thing here. The Heather Diniches of the world, they're not there every day. They fly in.
Right.
They spend some time in the summer, maybe, but it's a couple of days. They're working on an angle. And then they go to the kind of the national games of the week. They fly in on Friday and they cover a game and they write to a national audience and they leave. And they're never really in the building. They don't really go to camp. They don't see all these people at practice. And yeah, they know they're there, but they don't really think about it because that's not their paradigm.
Right.
And so when he said that about, hey, look, there's people that you've never heard of
Mm-hmm.
that are in here every day working with the players, working on plans, implementing game plans, implementing schematic changes or whatnot. He's like, there's lots of those people, I mean, as long as you have the people that are involved in the actual play calling at practice to practice the plays that you're going to be calling, you can substitute everybody else because those rooms are built. And Pete always references the 2020 season at Alabama when they won the national championship and different guys had COVID and tested positive, and including Nick Saban. I mean, Steve Sarkisian coached a couple of games as the acting head coach that year. And his point was, look, we had a plan. Everything was in place. We had the people in place to do it. You just roll out and kick somebody's ass. And I mean, that's where he's coming from on that. It's not, I saw some people like, they didn't really understand what he was getting at. And what he was getting at with that was, this is the structure, to your point, Pete, that Lane put in, that Pete even added to it of, hey, we've got to have a deep bench of staff to work with guys.
You can pull up the football website and find names that might not even have an email address and a picture. The bio is non-existent. And those are the guys in the room finding the holes in coverage that get attacked on a Saturday. And that's the reality. I mean, listen, at a high school football team in Georgia that has a full staff and certainly a much larger staff than what I had in high school in Mississippi. But the bottom line is if our linebacker coach suddenly gets sick and can't be there on a Friday night, then somebody's got to wear two hats. That's not the case in Oxford. If Charlie Weiss needs to go do a Zoom in a back office somewhere, Joe Judge is still in the room, right? There's and outside of Judge, there's other capable individuals in the room, and so yeah, that is where I think you do have to give credit. But to your point, I mean, you're right. It's not like Lane walked in day one and said all this has to happen. It was magically there. He had to work for it, and I do think that when they added Golden, when he came in and he said, well, we got to have these things too. Like sometimes hearing it from somebody else, we talk about it all the time. When high school coaches stay at one school for a long time and they get frustrated because their administration won't give them something because they've heard one voice ask for it. And then suddenly that guy leaves for another job and they open up the interview process and they interview 6 people and all 6 of them ask for the exact same thing. At some point, that athletic director and principal look at each other and go, maybe he wasn't off base.
Yeah.
And so that's a very real thing in every dynamic, I think, of athletics at every level. So But yeah, the infrastructure is there, and like I said, I couldn't listen before the half. Kids should have gone out of bounds. Period. Plays designed to go out of bounds. Period. They botched that opportunity to score 3 points. Outside of that, I thought that Ole Miss was flawless in their execution and how they handled all of the chaos and excitement and the swells of emotion on that sideline in New
Yeah.
Orleans.
At the end of the day, Pete Golding outcoached Kirby Smart, and I say that with no disrespect towards Kirby Smart
None.
at all. I'm openly a pretty big Kirby Smart fan.
Mm-hmm.
It just Pete Golding got the best of him on Saturday, and there probably will come a point where Kirby will return the favor, but that's what happened on Thursday in New Orleans. All right, we're going to turn to the game in Glendale in a moment. Ole Miss, Miami, a national semifinal at the Vrbo Fiesta Bowl. This show has been brought to you all season by RiverLand Roofing. When it comes to durable, high-performance roofing, RiverLand stands above the rest as a licensed, insured, and GAF Master Elite certified roof replacement contractor with more than 60 years of combined experience. RiverLand specializes in roof repairs, replacements, and maintenance for both residential and commercial properties. RiverLand Roofing combines expert craftsmanship with cutting-edge roofing technology to ensure long-lasting protection for your home or business. Their team of manufacturer-trained specialists delivers top-tier service while staying within your budget. So whether you need a minor roof repair or you're like me back in the summer where you need a complete roof replacement, RiverLand provides customized solutions tailored to your needs. To learn more, call RiverLand at 662-644-4297 or visit their website at riverlandroofing.com. Please make sure when you talk to the people at Riverland that you tell them you heard about it here on Pete's Pigskin Preview. If you just want to say MPW Digital, that's fine, but mention one or the other. We would appreciate it. And while we're thanking people, big thanks again to Caroline McCready for producing this show all season long. All right, so it's Ole Miss 13-1, Miami 12-2. Both teams, it's kind of interesting. I think if you were to ask people honestly, Ole Miss would be like, yeah, man, I'm glad it's not Ohio State. And I think if you ask Miami, they'd say, yeah, man, I'm kind of glad it's not Georgia. And yet someone's going to walk off that field and kind of wish it played the other one, you know? It's a 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern, 5:30 Mountain Time game, State Farm Stadium there in Glendale, home of the Arizona Cardinals. The winner goes to the national championship. Pete, tell us about the Canes.
You know that listen, you don't get this far without being a good football team. I think for a lot of people, I think everybody just wants to immediately look at the conference they came from and the schedule that they played and kind of say, oh, you know, they're 2 losses. Those were pretty bad losses. But you know, they're a good football team. Their staff does a phenomenal job. You know, that Mario Cristobal has had some curves, you know, some learning curves. I think there's been some times, and you look at the Georgia Tech game a couple of years ago that people like to kind of laugh about and how they managed into some end of game type stuff. But at the end of the day, he's built a really good staff. His offensive line coach, Alex Mirabal, is a personal friend of mine. If you've never seen Alex, he is 5'8", buck 60, Cuban American, and he is a phenomenal offensive line coach. You know, and he's through a former colleague of mine from my short time working in the state of Florida, that was coached by Alex in high school. I've gotten to know him a little bit, and there was a point during COVID where I was bored as coaches, and I started hosting these round tables for coaches. And once a week, we'd hop online, and I'd kind of set a topic every week and put it out there, and it gained a little bit of a following. And a lot of them are on YouTube, and they're out there, and they're public. But there were some where I actually had some college coaches willing to come on and kind of lead the discussion. And Alex is one of those guys. He was at Oregon at the time with Mario, and he came on and just an outstanding guy, but an outstanding football coach as well. And so they do a good job offensively. You know, the thing about them that I keep kind of looking at is there's nothing truly dominant about what they do on offense, but there is some balance that exists there. Ole Miss is 37th in the country, rushing at 180 yards a game. Miami, you scroll to the second page, they're 77th in the country, just over 152 yards a game. Now, the flip side of that is Ohio State's one of the best rush defenses in college football in the last few years, and they absolutely found ways to run the football against Ohio State last week. And so that number, like I just kept looking at it, it almost felt a little misleading. Passing wise, they're 37th in the country. I think Ole Miss is number 3, maybe. They're around 250 yards per game in the passing game. Where I think they do a good job, and Ole Miss obviously had an opportunity against Carson Beck in Oxford last year. Absolutely big game. He's playing in a completely different system now. And we talked a lot about the system at Georgia. Obviously, we've previewed them twice this year. And what they do passing game wise is not the most complicated passing system in college football. It's not. Miami's might be more simple than what Georgia does. And so his completion percentage is top tier. But so much of what they do is about giving him opportunities to get the ball out of his hand in a hurry. They're going to throw the ball into the flats to out routes and screen routes and hitches, and they're going to do all these things to get the ball out in a hurry because they have good playmakers on the outside. What you don't see a ton is Carson Beck pushing the ball down the field with a ton of success. So in my mind, when you're the Ole Miss defense and you're preparing for this Miami offense, there's some similarities, I think, in the way you approach a Georgia offense and the way that you approach this Miami offense. Miami's not going to play with 2 and 3 tight ends a ton the way that we've seen Georgia do. But one of the things we talked about leading into the Sugar Bowl was how Georgia uses their wide receivers in the run game, and they'll bring guys back across the formation to insert and do different things to change the math and gain hats. Miami, in particular, considering that they're not all big receivers, they do a phenomenal job getting those guys involved in the run game. And those guys are very willing participants of getting into the box and mixing it up in the run game. The offense, in my mind, is very much a pro style offense in that regard. There's not a ton of RPO in this offense. They've simplified things for Carson Beck, and I don't mean to say that in a belittling way or to take away from his abilities or his ability to process or anything like that. It's just not who they are. They will RPO perimeter screens. They might throw the occasional hitch out there, but it's more likely that you're going to see a receiver start one place, motion in towards the box, and then go block a safety or a linebacker. Then you're going to see them actually RPO. Now, one of the things that does is it makes them a real play-action football team, much in the vein of a lot of these NFL offenses. If you're a fan of NFL football, they'll play under center, they'll play in the gun, and a lot of times, they will take some shots off of their play action. Obviously, they've got a really good running back. They had a couple of guys carry the ball with success against Ohio State. Malachi Tony is one of the most electric players in the country. They're going to get the ball on his hands a lot of different ways. And that's, the one thing when you talk about Ole Miss defensively in that Sugar Bowl is there were a couple of times where they allowed the ball to get out on the perimeter and allowed Georgia to find some big plays. And twice in that game in New Orleans, Ole Miss handled things fine. And then you would have a defender in coverage, quarterback would break contain, that defender would leave his man to come flush the quarterback. And, Georgia's quarterback did a phenomenal job of getting the ball out to the guy that's now open, and that's where we saw the Cash Jones touchdown. That's or the run that got him down to the goal line, and the next play was like the quarterback sneak or whatever. So they're going to have to do a good job on the perimeter, kind of managing all of that stuff. But they're not. They're extremely efficient in the passing game, and they do a great job of staying ahead of the sticks. And for Ole Miss, who's willing to play a patient style of defense, and they're not always uber aggressive, and they're not always trying to get you behind the sticks, and they're willing to die a little bit of a slow death and then pick their spots. It's going to be interesting to see if they can negate some of that efficiency, whether Miami's trying to find it through the run game or through the quick passing game. If Ole Miss can kind of negate some of that and get them into longer down and distance situations where they're not great. One thing I will say about Carson Beck, and I watched a few games of their offense, but in particular in this Ohio State win, I thought that he did a great job of getting through his progression and taking his check down, or recognizing my initial read's not there, the pass rush is opened up in front of me, and just using his legs. That's one place where you saw Georgia move the sticks a little bit last week was whether it was, like I said, getting the ball down to a check down or quarterback being willing to use his legs. And so, you don't worry about Carson Beck as a dynamic runner. I don't think he's not somebody that you're gonna spy in the sense that that you're worried about him getting out of the pocket and really creating massive chaos and massive problems with his legs. But he is a willing runner, and he is a big body. And so to me, it's going to be, Ole Miss defensively. You're going to see a ton of zone football, especially wide zone football and duo football from this Miami offense. And when you're a heavy zone team, Pete Golding has some things that he likes to do that can really create problems for the offense. And it's some of the things that you saw him start to do in the second half of that game when the defensive line started to take things over a little bit, and really win some matchups and create some negative plays in the run game against Georgia. The issue is when it doesn't feast, sometimes it can lead to a little bit of famine. And if one guy misfits things, there's kind of a chance to bust. So we've spent a ton of time this year talking about the Ole Miss defense and can they rise to the occasion. They obviously rose to the occasion in the Sugar Bowl. And, I think at this point, you have to have some belief that they're going to give up some yards, they're going to give up some points. But the bottom line is you're talking about a defense that's, with the help of the offense and special team, have found a way to win more games in a single season than any other team in Ole Miss history. The talking point for this is, for so many people, is about this Miami defense, and understandably so. They're number 10 in total defense. The stats, the NCAA.com stats that I looked at, if I read them right, Miami's 10th. Now, how does that compare to some of the other teams that Ole Miss has played? Well, Oklahoma's 7th in the country. Georgia's 14th in the country. Washington State surprised me. They were actually 15th in the country, right? There's Miami's 6th in the country in touchdowns allowed. They've only allowed 21 touchdowns on the season. They do a really good job of kind of getting people behind the sticks and forcing them into negative plays. They're 11th in the country in third down defense. They're allowing their opponents to convert roughly 31% of the time. Ole Miss offensively ends up kind of converting on the average about 44% of the time. And staying out of third and long, because that's where Miami kills you, is they get you into third and long, and their pass rush is so dynamic. They've 16 interceptions on the season. It's good for 12th in the country. So they've done a lot of things. Now, all that said, they're also 40th in the country in passing yards allowed. When the pass rush does not get there, there is space in the secondary. And so that there's certainly a path to victory for Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to have to be good up front. And there's a few things that obviously they're going to have to prepare for, because I do think it's the best defensive line that Ole Miss has played this year. That they're big time. I don't feel like they're as complex as some of the other defenses that Ole Miss has faced. They're not as complex as Oklahoma. I don't know if they're as complex. I don't know if they're as complex as Tulane. But there is some similarity, I think, especially in certain situations. But so I figured let's, from a film standpoint, and then obviously we're going a little longer than normal, so RiverLand's really getting some free money out of this one. Let's dive in and let's take a look at this Miami defense and look at a couple of different games here. So we're going to start with the SMU game. Now, one thing I want to say is this. in Miami's two losses, the one common thread is Carson Beck and the Miami offense turned the football over. Period. They do such a good job of being efficient on offense that even when they're not scoring points, they're usually not making catastrophic mistakes. In their losses and even in their close games, teams have been able to get them out of their rhythm and they've been able to turn them over. And that certainly is what you're going to want to hope for as an Ole Miss fan. I chose this SMU game not because of the outcome of the game, but from an offensive style, I felt like it was very similar, right? Ohio State does not play the same style of offense that Ole Miss plays. Texas A&M does not play the same style of offense that Ole Miss plays. And so as I go back and I look at the schedule, I tried to find who's a similar in scheme, but also is a good football team, right? And so obviously landed on this one. So just kind of out of the jump, some big things to tell you about this Miami defense is that they base out of a 4 down front and their front 4 is really good. Where they do a really good job is finding ways to add a 5th rusher or an extra safety into the fit. And so, one of the things that you'll see, and I'm actually curious about some of the terminology and the way they communicate on defense, because I feel like there's a lot of times where based on the look the offense is giving him, they're checking who's actually going to be the guy that's part of the pressure. There's a lot of times where you'll see a kind of condensed receiver like this guy at the top here. He's not that tight, but you'll see a guy that's a little bit condensed, and you'll see the corner will blitz, and they'll play coverage behind him with the safety. There's times where this guy's split will be wider, and now you end up coverage with the corner, and the safety comes late, be it off the edge or through the middle. And so it almost feels to me like they determine they call a pressure path, and who actually executes the pressure is kind of based on alignment and what the offensive formation dictates who needs to be executing the path. So I think one of the things that you see when you watch them is teams will try to use some motion to try and make that predictable. And I do think there's some things Ole Miss can do to kind of aid in that and make things a little less predictable. But there's always a little bit of pick your poison with kind of the style of play that Miami uses. Now, here, obviously, first offensive play of the game, you'll notice that SMU motions out to get to a 3-man surface. And oftentimes when you do this, the response is that they actually are going to expand a linebacker with him, okay? This safety knows he's the extra fitter, and as soon as that motion happens and the linebacker expands, he goes ahead and gets active right now because he essentially truly becomes the linebacker. So from an offensive standpoint, the goal is to change the math, right? So if this linebacker leaves, the hope is that you end up with 5-on-5, and now from a defensive perspective, you add the 6th guy. So if you're not reading anybody on the offensive side of the ball, the math wins. So like here, what you'll see is they RPO, the 6th player gets added, and the safety that comes down into the box to become the extra man is actually the guy that ends up making the play at the line of scrimmage. Okay. Now, one big thing I do want to show you is this. Teams have thrown some perimeter screens on them, but watch zero. Watch their nickel and the way that he attacks this screen. He attacks it the same way against Ohio State, and it results in a pick 6 because they are willing to be aggressive. There's times where they're going to play with a lot of depth and they're going to protect things, but ultimately this is a defense that I think does a phenomenal job of reading their keys and rallying to the football. But one of the things that they do is they play with a lot of aggression. So you'll see here how he's going to dip inside and get upfield, and he's daring him to throw that football, hoping he can take it the other way. And in that Ohio State game, we actually see that happen. Where you're Ole Miss, and if you're using this type of motion and you're doing anything where you're going to try to manipulate this backer and get him out of the box, in my opinion, what you have to do is try and now identify, okay, where's the safety coming from? So pre-snap here, everything about this picture tells you that the boundary safety is the add-on. So if you can remove this linebacker instead of running now into the add-on, where you find the math as an offense is now coming back away from the add-on. Because now, in theory, if you go back to, and we'll go to the end zone copy. Excuse me, I had the end zone copy turned off. Give me just a second there. Let me fix myself. If you were to go to the end zone copy, I don't want to slow us down too much. What you would see is that there is a gap, right? And the defense is going to move, and you still got to block bodies and win matchups, but you create some space. So, all right, so I'm just going to stay on track here. Okay, we've seen Ole Miss in recent weeks use a decent amount of unbalanced formations. Okay, and we've also seen them in past weeks. Well, we know that they like Daquan Wright in the backfield. We have also seen them last week actually use a receiver in the backfield, something that they've done in past years, haven't really seen much of this year, and now has become more active. And let me say this real quick, because I kept thinking it during the game the other night. I don't remember if it was you or Chase, somebody on the site asked players, who are the unsung heroes? Who are the guys that, right? If you go back and you look at what those players said, those guys all balled out, right? Several guys mentioned that I remember mentioned Stribling. I think Wallace was mentioned. Like I thought it was interesting, and honestly, what I wondered watching the game was, are these guys that maybe haven't gotten a ton of opportunity during the season, but now the players are going through this preparation, they know what the game plan looks like, and they see what's coming? And I honestly wondered that at points during the game, because clearly those two guys were a big part of the plan. And there have been times, down the stretch, Stribling's had some big games, but there have been times throughout the year where you just don't see him a ton.
Yeah.
So, so this is the type of thing where if you're Ole Miss, okay, if I can get a skill guy here to potentially change the math and get a guy in space, or use my running back like SMU does here to potentially match them up on a linebacker, there is space to win, because they will play man-to-man. They will match things underneath. So what you're going to see here from SMU is they're going to pull and make it look like quarterback run here, which is obviously with Ole Miss something you have to be conscious of. They're going to wheel the running back out of the backfield and pop this tight end down this seam. Now, they're going to have routes opposite as well. This guy's going to go backwards because he's technically ineligible. But all this quarterback's got to see now is this safety. If this safety drifts to the tight end, now you're taking the matchup against the linebacker. And if he stays here, you're potentially taking this pop either versus this linebacker or versus this guy who's now playing from outside leverage. And so it's a nice, simple formation wrinkle to take advantage of a defensive tendency, and here a better ball, and it's potentially a touchdown. It's still an explosive play right here where they're able to match an athlete up on a linebacker, and more importantly, a linebacker that is getting a run action initially. And it's honestly, Miami scored on a similar scheme against Ohio State when they, on a true RPO, not actually a pass like here. Here he has the option, if number 6 is here, he's got his tight end down the pop, right? That wasn't exactly how, and it's honestly, Georgia tried to do something similar with the tight end that ended up being a big run for the quarterback. But again, very simple, easy read for the quarterback, create matchups for your skill guys, and with the run action, they have time to get the ball out of their hands, negate the pass rush a little bit. The very next play in the same game, one thing I would love to see Ole Miss do is get into trips open, 3 wide receivers, FIB, formation into the boundary. So take the strength of the formation, put it to the short side of the field. So here the ball's on the right hash. SMU is going to put 3 receivers. Now they're doing this in their tempo. They're going to put 3 receivers to the short side of the field with 1 receiver to the single side of the field. Okay. What has to happen with the base structure of this Miami defense, the nickel is more often than not going to be to the field. Okay. So now they have a couple of options. If the nickel's going to stay in coverage and be like a flat defender, and you're going to play cover 3, that means they're going to add on from here. They're going to rotate him tall, but because they're willing to expand their linebackers, the math can work in the run game. If, in this case, what they do is they're going to blitz the nickel from the field, which means this safety becomes the add-on, which means rotation should come here, you potentially have numbers in the screen game here, but that also could mean that you get a soft cushion. One thing we know about this Ole Miss offense, they will throw hitches until you come up, and as soon as you come up, they will work vertical balls. They're great at throwing back shoulder fades, and when you get on top of guys, Trinidad has shown that he can be effective spotting the ball. He certainly did a phenomenal job of it in the Sugar Bowl. So here, simple RPO scheme, out of tempo right there. They hand it off, and they hand it off in a way that the math doesn't work. They run it right into the blitz, right into the add-on, and I think they do a great job. Okay, if you throw the screen out here, you have a chance. You have to win matchups, but you have a chance. You're 2-on-2 to block. You have a chance to spit that, stay efficient, ahead of the chains, and good in your count. Up top, you've got a corner. If he wants to play soft, throwing hitch routes, throwing slant routes, there's space for all of those things out there, and Ole Miss loves those simple RPOs to get their guy in space. So I would love to see the Ole Miss offense play some 3x1 FIB. Okay, so here, another thing is, kind of said motion can kind of give away some things sometimes, can kind of change the math a little bit as well. So right here, pre-snap, you can see the Mike linebacker is plussed out. He's what they call pull the string to the trips, okay? That now means they've got to add from somewhere, so here comes the add-on. The weak side safety, typically number 8 here, I believe. Okay, so he is going to add down. So what they're going to do here is they're going to motion back across, which is going to pull him from the box, but it's also going to allow him to adjust a little bit as well. One thing that I see a ton out of this Miami defense is how often they play cover 3. So when you want to attack cover 3, you attack curls and seam space. So as you motion across, you get a player into this void right now. And you can do it by running seam routes, you can do it by running curl routes, or you can do it by running dig routes, which is something that Ole Miss throws a ton of. And you can see here where that space exists when you can identify the coverage. That ball, he takes the check down and takes the easy throw right here, but you can see the seam route is wide open right there. They have a crossing route coming from the backside that is also has some space to work right there. So I do think that there's time. And again, you're going to have to be right in your timing as a play caller. You're also going to have good awareness as a quarterback. But there's so much opportunity. And to me, the most important thing about this opportunity is you don't have to be great in pass protection. You have to be enough. You can't get beat in the initial move. If you watch this, if we take this from the catch of the snap and we pause it, 1, 2, 3. He's got plenty of time now to put this ball, and it's still a clean pocket. So that's important when we talk about staying ahead of the sticks, being able to get the ball out of our hand quickly, and not being forced to hold on to that football a ton. Okay, so this is actually the very next clip. Okay, and it is a simple RPO. For the quarterback, and he is going to throw, in this case, I believe, a bubble screen out wide. And again, one of the things I think this defense does best is they read and they react. So here, when they see the negative route by number 3, you're going to see him be aggressive right now, and he's going to go attack it. And the quarterback initially gets a read that tells him, yeah, I need to throw this ball out there because that's where the math is. Okay, they get beat at the point of attack out wide. The safety does a great job of seeing it. He's patient, and he's able to get downhill as well. Where you have to be able to, one, you got to do some of this to keep them honest out there. But if you're Ole Miss, and part of this is situational awareness by the Miami defense. This is a 3rd and 2. That safety knows it's unlikely the ball is going to go over his head. They're probably going to try to get the ball out quickly. So there's a reason this safety doesn't play with a lot of depth right here. He flat foots this and he's ready to go attack it right now. Well, what you have to see, if he's going to be aggressive and he's going to play flat footed, where's the space? Because if you can show it and get them to attack, you've opened up space behind them. The other thing that you can do in these simple type of reads, right? They're playing cover 3. If you run vertical through him, you now have an open hitch to the outside. So all of that space exists. You can negate this Miami box that is the strength of their defense, and you can get the ball out in space. The play that really won the game the other night, the vertical ball late in the game to set up the game time field goal, is a version of a stick concept, shock, and we've talked about it before on here. Ole Miss will use it in quick game. It can be effective in RPO as well, but it's a stick route by the number 3 receiver, a vertical or seam ball here. If he gets man-to-man, it turns into a slot fade, and then a hitch on the outside. Against this type of coverage structure, which is a common coverage structure in this nub trips formation from the Miami defense, that is a base concept for Ole Miss that is 100% on the page and has a chance to find space and be successful. All right, one thing you have to be conscious of, Ruben Bain is a great pass rusher. And to me, the most impressive thing about him is he's doing it at 275 pounds. He is an NFL body right now.
Yeah.
He has a great get off, great speed. He plays with great technique, and he does it at 275 pounds, which is not something you always see. A lot of times you'll see guys at the college level doing it at 250, 255, and then they add on that weight as they get older. Here, he does it, okay? They will give you some chaotic looks in the front. Ole Miss has seen these type of looks before. Okay. But one of the best things they do, in my opinion, is they will bring 2 guys off the same edge. They will loop the tackle out, and then they will bring Ruben Bain back underneath to find the open gap. When they need a play, that loop, that twist, bringing Bain back inside, especially off of a double edge pressure look, is the most effective tool in their arsenal. So anytime you see 4, whether he's hand down or what, and there's another guy standing outside of him, I would anticipate off the edge with the late twist by number 4 coming back inside. It's exactly what happens right here. Okay. Now here, quarterback gets the ball out of his hand in a hurry, and I'm just going to be quite honest with you. I don't understand his decision-making process, right? Everything about this pre-snap, we know he's playing zone. He's not cheated to cover to the trips. He's middle of the field. This is going to turn into cover 3, which means one of these dudes is coming out here to the flat. Okay, you are going to be 2 over 2. Up top, you've got a flat defender. You've got a deep third defender. Expect somebody to get out as well. Okay. Typically, I think you're going to see quarterbacks work the trip side here and not the single receiver unless they're trying to push something a little bit more vertical. Here, he works the boundary side. Guy drops out underneath. He's forced to take his check down. Okay. Again, good situational awareness by Miami right here. Okay. He's not in a hurry to get out of there because it's 3rd and 6. He's sitting on those sticks, defending those sticks right there. But if the quarterback works to the trip side right here, there's the curl space right there for a first down. There's so many opportunities in that curl snag space where I think you could see Ole Miss really be effective in their quick passing game, because so much of the kind of magic in the system for Ole Miss is their ability to generate explosives, but they're really, this year in particular, they've done a phenomenal job in their quick passing game to help them stay on schedule. Okay. Now, their safeties, they're aggressive. If you can protect, there's opportunity. Here, you're going to see a double move against their safety. Okay. So what's going to happen right here? They're playing essentially. He's manned up here. These 2 guys are essentially playing this like a quarters or a cover two look, and then you have a deep half player on the opposite side of the field. And part of that is because you have an unbalanced line. The tight end is here, he's ineligible, so the nickel is here. Okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to isolate 7-man protect, and they're going to work a double move on the safety. Whoop. Go back, say the wrong button. So they're going to attack him vertically, nod the glance, and then run right past him for an explosive. And they give him enough time to get the ball out of his hands, which is absolutely essential. It's it's a simple pass protection. They just full slide everything. But what I see with this formation is, one, you will see them at times bring extra pressure off this edge. Here, with the tight end being unbalanced, they want to bring the pressure from here. So if this is their coverage check and you push him vertical, even if it's not the double move shot play, you can see the space that exists underneath to keep the chains moving. It's an easy RPO formation. It's an easy quick game formation, but I would not be surprised to see it's just another unbalanced variation where I think you could see Ole Miss potentially exploit the defense. Here we are back to the 3-by-1 trips into the boundary look that I like so much, because you get this single receiver out here on an island. Here, they try to take advantage of it. He ends up getting out of the pocket and throwing like this little late swing route now. But as much as Ole Miss likes to RPO and throw hitches to the outside, that's a hitch right now with versus a Bell cover 3 corner to a Harrison Wallace or a Dejon Striblin that has a chance to turn and potentially spit into a big play for the offense. Just a couple more clips from this game, and then I want to jump forward a little bit. Okay, again, I think because Miami likes to play so much cover 3, I'm going to be shocked if they come out and play a ton of man-to-man and just go straight cover 1. It's in their arsenal. They do it. They're not bad at it, but it is going to surprise me a little bit if that is their mentality in normal down and distance settings. When you get them playing their cover 3, the opportunity to take advantage of curl space, it's basic, it's simple, and Trinidad Chambliss does a good job getting the ball out of his hands, but there's just so much opportunity. And here you can see he actually turns upfield and allows his ball to get punched out because they do a good job. They end up calling this one incomplete, but this is like a 3rd and 9 right here that's easily a conversion opportunity, and they just end up turning it over.
Yep.
Last one from this game. Okay. So something that I like, right? Going back to the first clip I was showing you earlier, and it's kind of part of why I skipped over it earlier. They're going to motion the tight end out again, okay? And they're going to expect to see if this linebacker will travel with him. Well, we know who the add-on is. We can tell pre-snap. They're either adding him on there or they're going to bring him and play him over the top. So you know what side the add-on is coming from. So here you're going to see him. They're going to motion back across. There's the handoff. Now, 2 things to note here. Okay, I'm going to go to the end zone copy. When you get 31 to move with the motion, the slant has to come this way. Here's where the extra defender's coming from, whether he's a B-gap defender and the end is staying outside, or the end is going to cross face and he's going to be the C-gap defender, okay? But when 31 leaves, you see the void that is created here. There's no B-gap defender until they slant. If you can stay sound in your zone, or if you can take advantage with a gap scheme and pin those guys, you're fine. Now, because they add the extra safety, they end up kind of working out the equation math-wise. Here's what you have to hope as an Ole Miss Rebel fan. Kejuan Lacey has been one of the best in the country at making the first defender miss and forcing missed tackles. Okay, Miami does a phenomenal job of this. You get a running back one-on-one in the hole with an unblocked defender. If Kejuan Lacey can win these matchups against Miami the way we've seen him win it at times against some other really good players, Ole Miss will find success running the football. But Miami is going to find a way to get an open hat one-on-one in the hole. It is going to be up to Lacey and Diggs in the Ole Miss backfield to make the first guy miss. All right. So that's early in the season. Miami fans would love to tell you they're playing a lot better defense now. That at that point in the season, the defensive line wasn't playing great. Now they're playing better. So let's skip forward a few plays from here as well. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is they stole from the Indiana playbook. Now, they'd done it in some other games that I saw, but not as much as they did here. Indiana played a ton of two steal against Ohio State. They showed this kind of quarters look, and then they ended up playing cover two to the three receiver side and bringing the backside safety down to become the backside curl defender, which means this corner now has to either play man to man, or what they typically are going to do is he's going to become the deep half player on that side of the field, and you're going to end up with an inverted cover two or something similar to this boundary side. Now, what Ohio State tried to do was use these tight ends and these kind of no man's land splits so that if the DNs wanted to play really wide, they could chip those players. The issue with that is when you invite him down, you also invite this nickel or linebacker tight to the box as well. So here comes one of those instances of two guys off the same edge where they can potentially loop Ruben Bain back inside, okay, and playing the coverage, trapping the flat, steal the hot, kind of helps eliminate some of the possibility to get the ball out of your hand in a hurry. So here comes the loop. Two guys off the trip from the trip side. Here comes Bain back inside, and Ohio State just absolutely botches it. The right guard is completely lost in his drop. The center oversets. Bain takes a gap, and quarterback ends up getting pounded right here. Okay, this is a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. You have to trust, get your protection, and then you have opportunities to take advantage here to the single receiver. If Ole Miss can recognize that they want to play this trap coverage, you have to be able to win on the single side versus the two steal. Now, the other opportunity is to double move this guy, but that's going to require more time, and you're going to have to be careful and really trust your protection. Here, Ohio State just botches it. You can really see it from the end zone copy. Okay, and all right. So here you see number 3 is going to line up head up on the tackle, which is going to force a little bit of a wider set. Bain starts out wide as well. So now you've really got to set deep. And what you see here, and really several times in this game, I thought 58 played on a different plane than the rest of the offensive line. If this tackle is going to vertical set, you need to communicate and get some depth with the other guys that are in the slide to that side. Because if he gets a lot of depth and he doesn't, and he jump sets or plays tight to the line, you create a ton of separation now, right? There's a real art to playing on level as an offensive line. So you can see 70 here is going to set with a lot of depth. There's a quarterback changing the slide, but 58 sets flat and kind of gets stuck on his inside foot and doesn't set with any depth. So the center who's trying to set and get there oversets it, and 4 runs right past him. But what really screwed him right here was the right guard not setting with any depth whatsoever. And the other thing that you would want to try and do, especially if you're going to put your tight end in this situation, is hope your tight end can chip, where you allow this guy, you need him to set with some width, but you really want to fight for depth. Because one thing that's going to do is this plays out, if he's more vertical in his set and not worried about being so wide, now this space that exists isn't there. Right? It's like setting a screen in basketball. You want to just kind of stay a little bit tighter. Again, talking about curl windows, little snag routes, little things that hit. Okay, they play so much cover 3. Here it is. They love adding the 5th rusher. Here it is, the nickel from the field. So here comes the rotation. Safety's going to be there. That means deep third. Flat player, you're just going to negotiate off of this curl flat guy. He expands, pushes wide because he's got to get wide to the running back or the tight end in that case. Easy throw and catch right there to keep the sticks moving, stay efficient. a little bit later in the game. Okay, explosive play. Not necessarily the style of play that you're going to get from the Ole Miss offense. They're not going to spend a ton of time, I don't think, with two tight ends in the game. Ohio State does more of that than Ole Miss does, but you're going to see them here because these safeties will be aggressive at times. They're going to work what Shanahan calls the heat concept. So he's going to work a deep curl in front of this safety, and they're going to work a deep post behind him. Pre-snap, you can tell it's one high, so you're expecting cover three. You know it's not cover one. He's wide outside leverage. He's bailing off right now. So these guys are going to be deep third with outside leverage. He's middle of the field. So it is a one-man isolation read. Now, South Carolina used the same version of the thing against Ole Miss to hit their big guy down the middle of the field for a touchdown in Oxford. They just did it from a spread set and not from this type of kind of pro-style formation. But you can see the quarterback's reading that middle of the field safety. Middle of the field safety sees the curl coming, steps up on it, and now is able to push the ball down the field. It's not a great ball. If it's a better ball, I'm not sure if he scores or if he doesn't score. But again, the play action, the use of a max protection slows down the pass rush a little bit, particularly when you do it at times that it's not predictable. And there's space to create some explosives down the field for the offense. Okay, the very next play, Ohio State comes out. Okay, this time they set the passing strength to the boundary. All right, so tight end is here. They've got twins to the short side of the field. Here comes the pressure from the nickel. So here comes the rotation right here. And he should be a deep third player. They're just going to run a Y cross concept, and they're going to give a little bit of a different look down here to the boundary. And if I remember, Ohio State is going to end up throwing the ball down here to the short side of the field. No, he ends up taking a sack on this one. I lied to you. Okay. But Ole Miss does a really good job with this concept, and the quarterbacks do a really good job timing-wise. Now, the protection here, the right tackle doesn't have a great set. It forces the quarterback up, and that gives Bain a chance to win his one-on-one. But what I see here is if a quarterback is playing on schedule, 1, 2, 3, and he sets his feet right now.
Touchdown.
If not a touchdown, easily inside, tight to the red zone, goal-to-go situation, right? And instead here, I think you have a quarterback that's feeling the rush a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just he spends so much time on the backside looking at his two-man concept, he's late getting to his tight end. The way I can't tell you how Charlie Wise teaches it. I can tell you how I teach it, and it's a very simple math problem for my guys, is if we divide the field in half, if it's 2 over 2, and I don't like a matchup, I'm getting off of it quickly. If it's 3 over 2, I'm getting off of it even damn faster. I'm just going to try to manipulate the safety with my eyes, and I'm getting backside right now to my cross and then to my dig. He spends so much time here waiting to see what's going to happen coverage-wise that he's, I think, late getting back to the middle of the field, and it gives the pressure opportunity.
Yeah, so he didn't see him come open until it's
at all. So here we go. Very next play. Here's another one of those unbalanced sets again. This is the pick six. I showed you against SMU earlier how the Nichols jumps inside and is aggressive as hell. Now, here's the thing. Math. 1, 2,
it's 3 on 4.
4 guys. Now,
yeah. So the way you teach this play with the field divided, your quarterback's already off that.
Right now, I want this handoff, and I'm hoping I've got a play call that's going to put me on this side, not here.
Okay.
Because I'm outnumbered here. Here comes pressure. Here comes the extra fit, and I've got a scrape linebacker that's going to play off the stun of the defensive line. In a perfect world, I've got duo called, and we're going to try and double team here up to there. We're going to try to double here, really up to that safety. Might be here and here, man, but we'll run on this guy if we have to. Let him fold in late because we should have a 4-yard gain by then. Okay. Now, what they're going to do here is obviously motion back out. Even with the motion, everything about this math, and they don't want Julian Sagan carrying the football. So they're going to pull these 2 guys right here without blocking back on the defensive end. And maybe he makes that play.
And he telegraphs it. Look at that.
100%. and it boom, cuts inside, pick six the other direction. Okay. If you're Ole Miss, run the football.
Yeah, this is where Trinidad would run.
Or
Or
hand it
give it
off
to
right there
Lacey. Right.
and try to get there. Now, is it easy? Hell no. You still got to execute against a really good scheme and really good players. But everything about the quarterback play on this snap, son, you made a crucial,
Big mistake.
crucial mistake that easily, in my opinion, could have been prevented. Very next drive, I love curls. I'll keep saying it. Maybe Miami makes me look dumb on Thursday night, but if Ole Miss wants to throw curls, if they want to throw seams, the space exists. Look at both curls.
Yeah,
They throw it down here to Jeremiah Smith. They're both open. That is the most basic, simple pass concept.
right there. Yeah.
It's as simple as it can get.
Yep.
I love it. If I'm Ole Miss, make them play something different. Now the key, like here, they run curl on both sides. You have a curl and a flat on both sides. I don't love that, and I don't love it unless they have a check versus man coverage or versus quarters coverage. They need to be able to get into a different concept. But if they feel confident on cover three, all day long, work the curl flat. And again, the big thing to me is he has time to get the ball out of his hand. They bring 5. It's a good pass rush. He takes a shot, but that's first down Bucks. They're moving the football. Okay. Very next snap. Here's that 3x1 FIB that I like so much. Bury the trips into the boundary. Isolate your guy to the field. Okay. Now here, they're going to do it to run the football, and look, they find math. They find numbers. Where's the rotation? Okay. The add-on right here, they don't even add an extra safety. They just bring 4 right here. But they're playing a 2-safety structure right here, playing more like a cover 2, and they're able to find the hat to run the football. And that's on a 2nd and long, I believe. Okay. Come back. That may have been a first and 10, and they were in their tempo series at that point. Okay. They will bust coverage on the back end, right? We talk about it all the time with Ole Miss, but we talk about the aggression of the safeties. So here's the safety. He's eyeing number 2. He sees number 2 go underneath, and he thinks, I'm about to go hunt up this curl route that they've thrown so much, and they're going to get down the middle of the field. No, they move the pocket right here. They show a little play action. And they try to pin and give him a little easy release right here, okay? And he just doesn't see it. Now, to be fair, it's not where his eyes are. His eyes are here. But this, I'm hoping, is part of the progression. And holy hell, he's got plenty of time to get that ball out of his hands. I mean, yeah, you're talking about absolute explosive, possible game changer. It's a 90-yard touchdown if you complete it in stride. Yeah. Absolutely. Right? And they just flat out miss it. And it's they're trying to rotate the coverage. They're trying to get to cover 3. But these guys, because they are aggressive, he sees the attacking vertical here, and he's late in his rotation. He never gets to it. When the ball snapped, he's still communicating with the corner, still trying to figure out who's got what. So maybe that is supposed to be cover 2. And this backside is supposed to be cover 3, or they flat up. But bottom line is they botch it and leave the middle of the field wide ass open. And Ohio State's not able to take advantage of it. The next series, I believe, to show you a couple more. Here's the same 2 steal that I showed you earlier. So he's going to be my flat player. He's going to be my deep half. He's going to come steal on this side. So we're going to be deep half here, flat player here. They're going to drop him out. They bust the coverage again. Okay. Pass protection right here works enough, but there they are again. It's Y cross. It is an A1 day 1 concept that Ole Miss runs, and that crossing route is wide open down the middle of the field, and they absolutely. And maybe it's not Y cross. If it's not Y cross, it's 3 verticals, and if it's 3 verticals, it is even more of a reason that he should have gotten his eyes to that player and absolutely taking advantage of it.
So right I know you don't know, but is he so conscious of the Miami pass rush that his eyes are not disciplined?
So it's hard to say. And like I was trying to watch his eyes in this, because what's weird to me is I don't know if they're trying to work like a double move down here and it's just not a great one, and they're trying to isolate this side. He's got his check down here. He's got the lead swing to the tailback. where he ends up throwing the football right there. But this is on the this is 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7. I don't understand why he starts his eyes to the left and then comes back right. When I see this concept, to me it looks like eyes should start right and go back to the left. So it looks a little. Now I'm sure they could sit here in a room and show me what they did, and I'd go, "Oh, that makes sense to me."
Yeah.
But looking at it naked, right? Then to me, it's either first read is the seam, and maybe he thinks the seam is capped, even though it really isn't, or he's trying to hold and steer this guy to now come back and work this side. But man, if he can keep his eyes in the middle of the field right there,
Well,
because
the
when
reason
they
I asked that, Pete, is because I think the last few weeks, I mean, really all season, but especially the last few weeks, Trinidad Chambliss's eye discipline, his
has
progression discipline has been elite.
it's been phenomenal. It absolutely has been. And right there, just knowing where his guys are. I mean, man, talk about that's 2 plays on the same drive. That's
You're
not back
leaving
to back
points on the
plays,
board. Yeah.
but you're absolutely leaving points on the board. So very next play after that one, they're going to come out and they're just going to run a simple RPO. See the rotation. For Ole Miss, they love throwing the hitches out here. A lot of teams will throw the glance route like Ohio State does here, right? Simple RPO. Again, you protect the quarterback because they're not in pass rush mode. The running back here does a great job of coming off his assignment because it's a true RPO, coming off his assignment and now picking up the edge rusher, right? Great job by him there, but it allows the quarterback to get back to his single receiver now. Whether that guy's running a glance route, a hitch route, a speed out, there's just space to be found when you recognize that rotation, and they've done such a good job of it this year. All right, this is a good one, and this one fits a lot of the stuff I think that we saw in New Orleans last week. They're going to start in one formation. You've got 2 tight ends. You've got tight end wing to the right of the offense, 2 receivers kind of condensed on the left side of the offense, and then they are going to shift. They're going to shift the 2 tight ends out wide. They're going to bring one of the receivers from the left, and they're going to put him behind their tailback. Okay? What they've done is made sure ball's near the middle of the field, so they've set the nickel. Set the nickel here to the passing strength, so you know where he is now. That's where they like to have the add-on as much as they can, okay? So now, here's the RPO. You've expanded the wheel out of the box. He's going to be the pressure. He's going to be the add-on. He's the deep third. He's a cover 3 player. What that means is now they're going to go double here on this flat defender, the wheel linebacker that's walked out up to the corner. They're going to run a swing route here with one of their receivers. They're going to have a run RPO here with the tailback. Okay, very simple read for the quarterback, very easy. And when we talked about it earlier about the way that Ole Miss used one in the backfield, coming out of the backfield as a receiver, very much fits into that kind of same mold, and it creates an opportunity for Ohio State to now get down into the red zone. Very simple. The nice little shift helps, again, set the defense, try to set the coverage, adjust the defense now, make them communicate, try to slow them down, give the quarterback an easy read for where his protection is, and get the ball out on the edge. Neal, in no way, shape, or form do I think this is going to be easy for Ole Miss, but I do think there is opportunity for Ole Miss. If they can take away some of the efficiency of the Miami offense and force punts and get Miami off the field and just not give up the absolute explosives that Tony and those guys have an opportunity to create. And then they just have to continue to do what they've done time and time again throughout the season on offense.
Yeah, they've just been so consistent on offense. They've scored on everyone, and they've played really good teams. Like you said, Oklahoma's defense, when you watch it in person, it's very, very good. So is Georgia's. I mean,
Absolutely.
Georgia has so much length and speed and explosiveness on the edges, and they're big, and their safeties are dynamic and really physical. And Ole Miss just still moved the football, not at will, but close.
Listen. Ole Miss had a lot of success, and they had to pull some plays out of their butt a little bit. You can't. I mean, some phenomenal plays that were they had to create. But you don't go on a national championship run without having to make some of those plays.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
100%.
And
I wrote about the 3rd and 5 play
yes,
where Chambliss scrambles to his right, comes back, finds Lacey. Bryson Sanders resists the urge to just absolutely, get a knockout shot that would have been a penalty.
yes.
It was discipline. I thought that play, it's kind of like, we talked about the Thunder winning the title last year. There was a couple of games for them last year where somebody just had to step up and make some shots. I mean, the ball swung to Lou Dort and he had to make a shot. The ball swung to Alice Caruso, he had to make a shot.
Yep.
It sometimes it's just, and then, you know, for Trinidad, he's kind of like a Luka Doncic, a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, you have to just take the game over. You have to go be the man, and that's what he did. 13 completions in a row and so many big plays, and it just, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Thursday night, Miami's playing really well too. They just beat Ohio State, but Thursday night just kind of felt like, huh, maybe there's a little magic going on here. I mean, I joke about it a lot with the whole football gods thing. Karma's real. And sometimes things just start feeling kind of magical. And I'm kind of there with them. I'm not all the way there, but I'm getting close. When I was 13 years old, Pete, there was a basketball team from Raleigh, North Carolina that went on a run in the ACC tournament and got into the NCAA tournament and escaped. Here's the part about NC State, the cardiac Wolfpack or whatever. Do you know that in the first round game, they're down double digits to Pepperdine? I mean, it
We
wasn't. It wasn't a. It. They didn't just get on a magic carpet and take off. They faced
no,
some adversity. Some
it,
stuff happened.
and everybody wants to. We all want to remember the game that wins the championship.
Yeah.
Those moments happen before you get there, right? And those are the
Well,
things that I think build resolve and build confidence, so that when you're in that moment, it's not too much.
the Ole Miss baseball team when they won the title,
Absolutely.
the game that people don't really ever talk about much, that I thought was the big game for them, was um, the day after they lost the game to Arkansas to force I guess basically a national semifinal game. Um, was it DeLucia? Just pitched his ass
I,
off because the kid for Arkansas that day pitched really, really well. I mean, you had to have a elite outing to get it, and they got it. And I think that's the fun part about when you get to this point, is that someone's going to do something special. And Miami's got some dudes who can do it, but
yep.
frankly, I'll be honest, I kind of think Ole Miss has more.
There's no reason right now not to believe in Ole Miss against anybody they play, and it doesn't mean that this game is a shoe in. Far from it, because I think let's put it like, I mean, I don't think Mario was lying when he said that he thinks that Ole Miss will be the best football team they've played all season, or that they will play.
Yeah.
I don't. Are you blowing a little bit of smoke? Sure, because he's going to play somebody. If they win this ball game, they're going to play somebody really good in the next one, right?
That's just
But
how it works, right? I mean,
it is.
you
But
know,
the reality is this Ole Miss team has just kind of continued to improve at times, despite. If you'd have told me after the Arkansas game that this team was going to be in the last four, whatever,
no,
not happening,
no.
right? And then you watch the first Georgia game and you go, maybe. And
Yeah,
then you watch the Oklahoma game and you're like, oh, well,
yeah, right.
But it's not like it was all roses after that. You know, there were times where games were maybe a little tighter than people wanted them to be, and some of that stuff.
Yeah, no, if you
So,
told me Arkansas game, hell, Kentucky game that day in Lexington, Washington State,
yep,
I would have said, no, I don't know that there's enough. But then things started clicking, and here they are. They beat LSU and they beat Oklahoma. on the heels of what turned out to be a really weirdly emotional loss, and now you know why. And here they are. So
Yep.
we will, I guess, hopefully be back for one more episode of Pete's Pigskin Preview. If Ole Miss wins, they will play the winner of the Peach Bowl in Atlanta between Indiana and Oregon. It's a Big Ten battle between two teams that are playing each other for the second time. That game is on the 9th. It's the day after the Ole Miss game. So those two winners play January the 19th in Miami Gardens, Florida, there at Hard Rock Stadium. So if Ole Miss is in that game, we obviously will have a national championship version of Pete's Pigskin Preview, which is a sentence that I really didn't think I'd be stating at any point in September if I'm just being totally honest. I love the people like, why didn't y'all budget for this? I'm like, oh, for the love of God, shut up, stop. They lost a lot of guys to the NFL off this team, including their quarterback, who's a starter in the NFL now. There was I'd like to meet the person that budgeted for Ole Miss to be in the College Football Playoff Semifinal,
Yeah.
and you'll have to prove it to me. You don't
Yes.
have to tell me. You'll have to show me the document.
I also just want to see what their budget is to be able to set that aside.
Yeah, it's nobody locally. I can tell you that because we budget sometimes for Omaha and Sweet 16s or things of that nature, and I know what goes into that. And it's pretty heady. So all right, we'll wrap it there. Pete, as always, man, thank you so much. That was really good stuff.
Thank
Ole
you.
Miss, Miami, Thursday night, 5:30 Mountain Time, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. We'll have coverage leading up to the game at Rebels 24/7 and MPW Digital. And of course, we'll have game coverage from me out in Glendale. Chase will have the MPW Digital post game show right after the game, win or lose. From he'll be in Oxford, so he'll have that show for you, and we'll have lots of content coming your way between now and then. So for Pete DeWeese, I'm Neal McCready. Again, thanks for being with us. Thanks to RiverLand Roofing, and we will hopefully talk to you again soon.